Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play Team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you again for joining us in the Old Ways podcast. My name is Michael Diamond. I will be your keeper this evening for Horror on the Orient Express as our campaign in Trieste continues. So at the top of the show, as we like to do always, and that is to thank our listeners and our Patreon supporters. We truly appreciate what you bring to the table, and I know the players tonight will enjoy everything extra you have in store for them. And so, at the top of the show after that, we'd like to get to introductions and introduce our players, whom this show could not be done without. So, to my right.
Hi there, this is Mike, and I play James Robert Fraser, and I'm off to church.
Indeed, sir, you are off to church. It's been some time, perhaps, since you've been to a good old-fashioned sermon. And to Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Lady Elisabeth Fitzroy, and I've been learning a lot of historical information.
Indeed. Even more information to pack into the matter there, the gray matter to utilize later in hopes of getting this thing all sorted out finally. At the end of the table.
Hi, this is Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith. And Simon is having strange dreams about trains again, and he does not like dreams about trains.
No, the dreams, the trains, when those two subject matters mix together, generally speaking, it's been fairly foul for you. To Mr. Griffith's right.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I play Maggie Bellinger, and I don't have anything witty to say this time. I'm just happy to be here.
My, mark the record. Last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtney. And Richard now has 2 devices, not just one.
So we're going to raise the curtain on tonight's episode as we'll say, majority of the investigating team heads to a family residence. So when last we saw them, they were exiting a museum, and they were making their way into a fairly upper-class neighborhood in Trieste. They continue to climb a few of the hills, having to utilize the rope handholds as the Bora winds continue to swirl nearby. Those of you who have not fully recovered from your wounds, that may be more than one of you, are feeling perhaps a little bit more weight as you make your way into this neighborhood. The villas and houses that are here are a little bit more opulent. They're a little bit better kept up. And you approach the Terramona residence and get a good look at it before making your way up the cobblestone walkway. So what I would like to know, between the investigators whom are available, and that would be Lady Elisabeth and then Miss Bellinger, which one of you is in the lead?
I kind of imagine Lady E in the lead with Maggie behind her, kind of trying to help brace her against the winds.
Yeah, I could see that. You are now in front of the Terramona house. There is a nice, well-done porch, Italian style. There's a lot of, we'll say, 16th or 15th or 16th century stonework that's been done around the house here. It's not a palace by any means, but this is an affluent neighborhood, and that is something that is not easily hidden. Having walked a few of the neighborhoods already in your time in Trieste here, you can tell that this is kept up a little bit more.
Are you still all right to keep going, Miss Bellinger? Must be quite tiring.
Oh, no, I'm quite fine. I feel invigorated a bit today. I had a good morning, so I'm fine.
Shall we go in then?
Yes, of course.
So, Lady Elisabeth, you realize that you're going to have to do something you would not normally have to do. You're going to either have to knock on the door or ring a doorbell.
What?
Did you want me to do that for you?
Lady E is just sort of staring at the door. It's like, I don't know what to do in this situation. Like Maggie will see her just kind of looking at the door, because Mr. Fraser normally does that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Maggie will reach around and knock.
Oh, thank you, Miss Bellinger.
A few moments pass as the wind of the Bora forces you to grab the wrought iron rails that are here. Sort of hold on. Rather be other than that, be blown down or blown back into the street as some of these gusts take over. A moment or two later, the inner door opens. You can tell that there's an outer and inner door here, and a short man sort of enters your frame of vision, and he speaks through the glass and says, "Yes." He speaks in Italian.
Do you speak English?
He kind of changes his features up a little bit. He opens the door. May I help you?
Sort of look at Maggie, because this, again, is what Mr. Fraser normally does, is explaining our business. I'm not used to having to explain myself.
Yes, hello. We are here looking for information about a medallion. This is the home of the family that donated the medallions to the museum.
He comes a little bit further into view. His face, the door opens just slightly, and his face pokes out of it. And he's got longer, straight black hair. It's not completely unkempt, but it does appear that perhaps he's just got a little bit longer of hair than you've seen in the normal style. He has an eye patch that he wears, and he says, "This is the Terramona family." You can hear him sort of mutter out in English.
Yes, well, we noticed when we were at the museum that one medallion that was donated by the family was missing. We were hoping to talk to someone about this.
You can tell that he's really struggling to keep up with your speed in English.
Maggie talks louder, as one does when you speak a different language than them.
He sort of curls his lip a little bit as you pick up the volume.
I look to Lady Elisabeth.
Yes. I try to use the little Italian I have, which is not very much, but the few words that I've picked up to explain that one of the medallions is missing.
He nods and opens the door for you and motions for you to come inside.
Well, that worked. And I sail in ahead of Maggie.
I suppose I should have had you do the talking in the first place.
He points you to a foyer that the house has. The house sizes are much smaller than they are in England, as far as you were familiar with, Lady Elisabeth. He directs you to a place that has a couple of chairs and probably some paintings, that sort of thing. It looks like a foyer. It's just large enough for a couple of guests, and that's it. And he says in a slow English, he says, "Do you have a card?"
Of course I do. I don't say that out loud, but I just reach into my bag and pull out a little silver card case and hand him one of my cards.
He plucks the card from the case, and you see him with that one eye sort of peer at it very closely. You can see the card going in and out as his left eye tries desperately to focus on the text that's there. Fitzroy. He nods. "I will speak with the master of the house. Please," he gestures to the furniture.
Grazie.
His mouth sort of turns up a little bit when you speak Italian, and he shuffles down the hall. The rest of the house here is a little bit poorly lit. You're not certain if it's a lighting or a gas issue, one of the two. It doesn't look like there's a ton of gas lamps here. It looks like there's a few kept candlesticks and places to light spaces, but it doesn't look like they have a ton of electric lighting in here. Not completely unbelievable, but just something you would notice. It does bring the shadows a little bit in more prominently to some of the spaces that are here. But you see several family portraits that are on the wall, and then tapestry, that sort of thing. There's a mirror at one side.
When he said my last name, he said Fitzroy, did it seem familiar to him?
No.
Or is it just figuring out what the name was?
It seems like he's trying to figure out how to pronounce your name to someone else.
Okay, just check it, just in case.
So I will leave the two of you there in the foyer just for a moment. Professor, your device you feel is prepared and ready. You feel like it's going to be more efficient, at least time-wise. Of course, it'll have to be tested out on the subject to make certain it works. But it also has taken you quite a bit of these spare parts to cobble together, but at least you felt useful. And to be fair, you won't have to worry about the potential ligament damage to your own hands.
Yeah, Richard is... I don't think he's quite grasped the pain aspect of it. He's looking at this very scientifically and thinks that obviously this beating is designed to stimulate some nerves, and then this should do a good job, but without the pain. So, yeah, he's trying to do Maggie a favour here.
Certainly. So I suppose with some of the other investigators away and your shop class pretty well tidied up and done, what would Richard do with the next few hours?
I think he'd probably sit down and mull over the events, maybe flick through his notebook and just sort of see what's going on. And at some point, I imagine there's a mirror in this room, isn't there?
Oh, certainly.
So I think he's going to flick a gaze at the mirror, and he's going to remember that the last time he used his device in a room with a mirror, somebody looked at him and said, "Stop looking at me." That's still an itch he needs to scratch. He wants to know who the hell that was. Yeah. He's very confused. And with that, I mean, I don't know, he certainly needs a rest. He's a bit shook up at the minute, but yeah, and it doesn't make sense to do this, but, well, he'd like to find out. So he's going to go play with his other device and see if he can work out who it was that was talking. I mean, how can they even see him? Doesn't make sense.
Left to your own device there, you decide to spend the next couple of hours with some soul searching. So I guess the question, as it always is, would be what lenses would you be using? And then I suppose what is the intent?
So I think he would use the same lenses that he did the last time that he had the incident with the mirror.
All right.
And the intent is to, rather than sort of focus on anything in particular, it's more of a mindful what's in my surroundings, and that would probably involve the mirror as well. You know, initially, can he see anything around him? Can he sense anybody? If he sort of looks a bit sideways, does someone appear? And if that doesn't happen, he's going to start sort of using the mirror just to see if he can perhaps see something different in the mirror.
Yeah, you don't get a sense when you get close to the mirror with the device in hand that there's any sort of foul presence or secondary force here. You do get a little bit of sense of trepidation just holding the piece near the mirror, having dealt with that before. But what you feel with the lenses sort of sorting and clicking into place, you have a few of them that you know certainly what they do. but the pink and black lenses you're not so certain on.
Yeah.
And so, given the time, what harm could there be in just investigating it a little bit deeper?
Exactly.
So that is a power roll, should you choose to use it.
That is... Ooh, scraping it. 79.
It's a pass. That's what's important. All right. So why don't you go ahead and roll me 1d6.
Oh, 6.
Spend 6 magic.
There we go.
All right. And you're using the pink and the black lens. So what you get as you click the lenses into place, the comfortable snap and articulation of those mirrors come into place, those lenses come into place over your eyes. And in this room, you see a couple of things. You see bodies laid out on the floor here. 3 of them. In a very specific row pattern. Their feet and ankles together, their arms at their sides, white sheets covering them, sort of lined up. And in the room here, there is a man you've seen before in a previous vision. The man with the knife that came after Winkleman. And you see that each one of these bodies has something underneath of it. The bodies are wearing something around their neck, but the sheet covers it, so you're not certain what it is. And in this room, in this chair that you're seated in, you sort of stand up out of it because you realize that that man with the knife is in your seat. And he's slowly using a whetstone to sharpen this knife. And he has a wide brim hat on, very similar to the one he wore when you saw him previously. Dark clothes. He has a very sinister look to his face, at least in his whole appearance. The cape, the cloak around his shoulders. And as he looks up and into the mirror, I want you to make me a spot hidden roll.
Ooh. Oh, Richard has a spot hidden of 71 now after the last improvement rolls, and I just rolled a 73.
Well,
so
questions. You could push that roll if you'd like, given that it's in the 70s. You have a fair chance ratio-wise of getting a success. You could, of course, spend a few luck, which you're not so full on anymore.
I think Richard will... I don't know. I mean, he's looking around, right? That the whole sort of purpose of this is to focus on his surroundings. So I think if he's sort of intuitively speculating there might be something that he's just missed, I think he's very much going to try harder.
Okay, so in what ways, sir?
So maybe he's seen something out of the corner of his eye, or he thinks he has, so he's going to just sort of mentally focus on it. Sometimes you can look at things at slightly different angles and you pick up something in your peripheries that you wouldn't see straight on. So, yeah. You know, maybe he saw something with one eye and not the other. So, yeah. Just playing with his vision, focusing and concentrating.
Fair enough. Go ahead and push the roll.
91.
So, you hone in on something that you really did not want to see. In the reflection of the mirror, you get a direct look at this man's shirt and his collarbone. It's open a bit. His shirt and the collar is open. It's likely warm in here. He's wearing a gold chain around his neck. It comes to a very specific point, and your eye caught something, certainly. And what it caught is this almost starburst pattern icon that he wears. And it's a multicolored gem in the middle. And it sunlight bursts out from the center. It's no more than 2 or 3 inches in diameter. But unfortunately for you, what it reminds you too directly of is the threading on your body. And what you hear is sort of the same tones in the room that you heard when you had that conversation with Professor Smith, but there's something going on outside. And the open window that's not too far from this chair from your own room, you see those threads begin to appear. And before you can pull your eyes away from the figure in the chair, his chin tips up a little bit, and you hear him say,
"Do you like what you see, Richard?"
And you're going to make a sanity roll now.
So one question, does this sound like the same person that Richard heard before telling him not to look at him?
It does a little bit. It does a little bit.
Not conclusive.
No, not conclusive at all.
Oh, 09. That was a good one.
It was so fantastic that the Hand of Fate is going to force you to re-roll.
2 was it? 13.
Fair enough.
Makes up for that crap 90.
All right, so I'll take 2 points of sanity from you in this regard. Just 2. But when you look up and you lock eyes with that face, your face in the mirror, you see that the eyes are complete thread work. Not just simple flecks and starbursts when someone gets close, but these are running threads. They're moving. And the figure stands up and turns to face you, like in an aggressive posture.
Yeah. Richard is going to clutch the mirror in his hand. I'm assuming it's, maybe wrongly, like a wooden one on a little thing that you could pick up or move around the room.
I think it's probably a small mirror. They wouldn't probably go for the big wall-mounted mirror.
Yeah. And Richard will say, "Yes, who are you?"
Who are we?
We?
We.
I can only see the one of you.
We. He motions back and forth between your body and his. I've been doing your dirty work. He casts his arm up to the bodies that are on the floor. I've been following you this whole time, and I'll keep following you in the future. Because you need someone to take care of these things.
I'm not quite sure I understand.
You won't until later.
Who are these people? These ones on the ground?
Oh, are you sure you want to know? I think it's best kept a secret.
Yes, I think if people are being killed on my behalf, I have a right to know.
Not on your behalf, at your order.
I'm sorry?
He steps over. He kneels by the first body and extends a completely thread-like hand down to the sheet covering it. These creatures come through time. They're hunting us because of what you did. You've been playing at this game, and you forced our hand.
I'll ask you. I mean, who are you? What do you represent?
He looks befuddled for a moment. His head tilts. You are so young at this. I'm mop up. I'm working your janitorial duties. Every one of these creatures, every time you use that device, another is made.
Ah.
You use the device to learn, to figure out what it does. And every time, reality readies a slap.
Ah, right. I had wondered if there was a consequence.
Of course there are consequences.
But why you?
I don't know. You made me.
I what? I made you?
The first time you put the device on.
I don't understand. This wasn't the first time the device was used by somebody. I'm assuming I'm not the first.
No, of course not. But when the host dies, the copies fade.
Copies?
It sneers. Copies. I'm a copy, Richard. You made me. And now you're going to have to deal with me.
What deal? I'm not quite sure I understand.
Knowledge has its consequences.
I know.
You think you know. Every time you use the device, one of these, he gestures down and sort of pulls at the white cloth a little bit. One of these is made. It's sent through the threads to slit your throat. Your mind created me as a defense. I have only your best interests in mind.
Right. What is it that sends these things? And why?
The creator of the device wants it back. It needs it to see.
Ah. Is the creator?
I will not speak their name. I do not wish their judgment here.
Right. For a copy, you seem remarkably well informed. I mean, I know very little of what you speak, yet you claim I am me, I think, if I understand correctly.
I don't have time to educate you about time itself. You're the professor, I'm the copy.
Where might I find more information? And maybe you could, I don't know, give me a clue, somewhere to start, a thread to pick.
Funny. I'll give you a thread. He stands back up. He steps forward and lunges at you. If you'd like to dodge, you can, or fight back if you'd like.
Is he lunging with a knife?
No, just his hand.
Okay. Yeah, Richard will try and dodge.
Go right ahead, sir.
Well, that's 36, and Richard's dodge is 25, so that's a dismal fail.
I've rolled a 0-2.
Ooh.
So I'm going to touch you, sir. And when I do, this form moves at a lightning speed. And while no weapon appears in his hand, he pokes you in the chest, hard, right on the sternum. And when he does, something comes out of his finger. It's spindly. It has several lashes to it, and it attaches to your sternum. And you begin to feel it burrowing into your skin.
What is this? Well, I thought you said you were here to protect me.
I am. Information, knowledge is also power. Make a con roll.
Oh. Richard's con is 60, and that was an 88.
Very good. You feel a draining force in your sternum, in your core, the core of your chest. You feel it begin to. You feel fingers begin to weave themselves into the skin there, and it is a incapacitating and almost breathless control that it takes over your chest. You begin heaving in and out, trying to gain some sort of steadying pace to your breathing. And we'll give you the opportunity to push the roll should you choose to stay on your feet. I will, however, remind you that failed push rolls, as we see, are bad.
I think Richard will take this one. I'm not quite sure failing this would be good.
Okay. You collapse. Your last vision, your last fleeting perceptions of this space are a picture of you doused in these multicolored threads that have made up this copy of you's skin. Pick up the first form that it laid on the ground. And when it does, the sheet slightly pulls away from a very wide gray face with almond-shaped eyes And you realize just as unconsciousness claims you, that creature is a hideous, misshapen form that you see in the mirror every day. And you pass out.
Ooh.
So, Simon, getting some rest in the hotel is not very hard. It is definitely something post-ritual with Anton you desperately need. And so the extra hours you put to use, at least resting, reading up on Greek, and making sure that, well, you've got enough time to recuperate from such a traumatic experience that you had in the mine.
Since I've been reading up on my Greek, is Simon able to attempt a translation of the scrap that he has?
Certainly.
Now, I currently only have a 7. That would be a 40, but since I have no luck, I will not attempt that. And I don't see how I could really push the roll unless you want me to treat it as a library use where I'm actually taking the book and trying to translate each individual letter.
Yeah, I don't think a push is really valid here. You can only push your brain to understand something so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really have a ton of Greek literary sources around you to make up the difference.
Do I pull any single words out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. You pull the Greek word for the sea out.
Okay.
It definitely is looking at this portion of this paper deals a little bit with something by the sea or something associated with the sea.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take a scrap or a piece of paper and start trying to translate the individual words bit by bit.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing if I can string them together, understanding completely that once I've translated a word and I think I have a phrase, the entire meeting may change because look at English.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you dig in a little bit more. How are you doing health wise?
I am at least a third of the way back. I'm still wanting at least one more full night's sleep, hopefully without bad dreams under me. Yeah, I'm currently at 13 hit points out of 30.
Yeah, so you're close to halfway. You're still ailing pretty well. It's really more the leg that has given you issue, the leg and the foot.
And I'm still waiting for them to come back with a cane or crutch, so I will stay at the hotel until one of them delivers one of those things.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll say that you spend the next few hours continuing to rest and continuing to read and research.
Okay.
All right. Ladies.
Yes.
The Terramona house is quiet for a good long 4 or 5 minutes.
Is Maggie quiet? That's the question.
Unlikely.
Maggie's just chatting away
Mm-hmm.
about the
Yes.
the trip down into the grotto, and the waking up in the strange guy's house, and of Richard carried me. That was a whole. Richard carried me out of the grotto.
Oh, did he? It's about
Yes.
time.
Yes, it was quite impressive.
I didn't think he had it in him.
Me neither, honestly.
Yeah, it is something to consider at least a little bit there that you didn't think the professor really did strength-wise have it in him, but somehow he pulled you out of the depths of the grotto. He must care.
We have time for a little girl talk, I guess.
I mean,
In a strange person's house.
Right.
Where they've been gone for a while.
so a few minutes later, you see this sort of not misshapen by any means, but just a grizzled young man, if that's even possible. I suppose it is. This young man who looks like he's led a pretty hard life. He's wearing an eye patch. He's wearing halfway decent clothes, but nothing that would befit sort of this area of town where you've seen other Italians wear here. He comes back and again gives you a bit of a smirk and says, the master of the house will see you now.
Oh, fantastic.
So before he even finishes his sentence, a taller man walks in, somebody who is definitely... he reminds you a little bit of your father, Lady Elisabeth, only in the sense that he walks in with the authority that someone who's the head of the household does, right? So he sort of doesn't care what other people think of what he's doing or where he's going or how fast he's walking. The house seems to run at his pace. You can tell this just as the steps come down the hall and then he eventually walks into the room. It does look like the man you met at the door seems to linger there in the corner as this older man step in. He bows very graciously to the both of you and says, "My name is Antonio Terramona. How can I help you?"
Pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Lady Elisabeth Fitzroy, and this is my companion, Miss Margaret Bellinger.
Fantastic.
We're here about some medallions I believe your family donated to the museum. We're doing a bit of a study on Herr Winkleman, you see, and we happened to notice there seemed to be one missing.
Interesting. Would you care for some tea?
Tea would be lovely, thank you.
He sort of gives a slightly dismissive gesture to the man who greeted you at the door. "Marco, go and prepare the tea. We'll have the study would be fine." Marco turns and shuffles away.
For the record, Maggie will accept tea but not drink the tea.
I think given your run-in with tea recently, that's totally reasonable. So Antonio walks you to his study. This is a room that's probably, I would say, 15 by 25 or so. It takes up a large portion of the house. There's an awful lot of what you might find in a study. Bookshelves. There's a globe in one corner. You can tell that Antonio has at least some worldly riches to him. He has fineries here that are not the norm. He has a stand for singular books. So he has a book sort of on display. It looked like it could double as a decorative piece, or it could be someplace he likes to stand and read, one of the two. He steps into the room and then heads towards a table that is set up near a couple of the larger windows in the study, which it looks like it looks down on the shore nearby. "Please," gestures to the seats and pulls out each one in kind.
I take a seat.
The tea will just be a moment, I'm sure. So I think it's fantastic that you would come looking and be so interested in Winkleman.
Why is that?
Well, for the longest time, our family has been searching for that last medallion.
Oh, so you were aware then. We weren't sure if it was a recent... Perhaps someone absconded with it or something.
No. When my father turned over the medallion set to the library, they were incomplete. It's fairly unfortunate, actually, because the complete collection is supposed to be something to behold. The collection as it is wonderful. Builders through time, but it would be nice to have it complete, at least for the city and for his legacy.
Do you happen to know what the final medallion looks like?
I don't. I know it's roughly the same size as the other medallions in the case. There are rumors. I mean, I could show you any number of notes that we've compiled over the years of what people say the medallion looked like, or things people have rumored that they've held it or they saw it at one point. But from what I understand, it's a medallion of rough size. It's silverish in color, and it has a more ancient builder's symbol on it. From everything I know of it, it's held on to a fairly thick chain, as all the rest of the medallions are. And that's about all I know.
Have there been any rumors or thoughts as to who might have taken it or when it disappeared? When your family came into contact with these, was the set complete originally, or was it just the 7?
When my family came into contact with them, it was just the 7. The 8th had not been, had already been missing for some time. But the family, we were, as you can imagine, we were involved in many studies and many searches for antiquities, as many rich families are, yes. And we had heard legend that these medallions had been cast, that they had been found in the area at one point, that Winkleman had put them together, and that they had been collected over a period of centuries. And so once my father had figured out that he must have it, he began sparing no expense. He sort of stares around at the house.
So why donate them to the museum then?
My father, in his heart, was a philanthropist. He was desperate to make Trieste a place that others would want to come and enjoy the arts. There are so many books about Venice and about all the other wonderful Italian cities. Milan, Rome. Very little is ever written about this city. Very little is ever said about it. People forget we exist. He was determined that there would be something that the world would remember Trieste for. You see him sort of move his arm almost in a hugging motion towards himself, like he needs to be reassured, I suppose. You can both make me spot hidden rolls.
55 under 63. That's a pass.
And that is a 10 under 41 for me.
Nice.
So you would notice, Miss Bellinger, especially given your recent, we'll say, dalliances at a certain doll factory, you're not quite sure that Antonio's arm is real. You think he might have a prosthetic. It may be something that he hides very well.
Well, it would be rude for me to just ask about it, wouldn't it? But I am American, after all.
It would be very Bellinger of you to just ask about it, yes.
Yes.
It would also be very Bellinger of you to just trip and fall and grab onto it by accident, thus revealing if it's fake or not.
I only do that to butts. So, do you mind if I ask, what is it that happened to your arm? Are you okay?
He sort of nods very slowly.
Lady E looks horrified.
Yes, you do. You absolutely do. Because once she points it out, you're like, oh, right. Wow, that's fake. He nods very slowly and says, like many Italian soldiers who served during the war, I came back home with less of myself than I wanted to.
We recently visited a factory where they make prosthetics for soldiers.
Oh, well, wonderful. He sort of tenses his arm a little bit, and you can see he's probably now a little self-conscious.
Would you mind if I took a look at it? I find it quite fascinating.
Oh, I don't think so. If you would just permit me this, I would appreciate it if we stayed on topic.
Oh, of course.
Lady E looks like she's about to die of mortification.
The Marcus comes in with the coffee or the tea and begins setting them about. He sort of looks at both of you as he sets the teacups down in the service. And after doing his appointed duties, Antonio sort of waves him away.
How long has he been with you? He's quite an interesting fellow.
Oh, he assisted me during the war. He was, I believe you have them, more of a footman, if anything. Someone that serves and makes sure that his master has everything that he needs.
A valet, quite.
Yes, I suppose that's the word for it. We might call it a batman. Either way.
Aide de camp, perhaps. What my father was fond of saying.
And sadly, the same shell that took my hand wounded his eye.
Quite tragic. So, how long has your family had these medallions before you donated them to the library, or rather, before your father donated them to the library and museum?
Oh, they would have been in the family for several years. They sat not far. He points with his right hand. He points across the study, and you see that there's a pedestal. It's about 3 or 4 feet off the ground, and you see that there's a book and then some assorted papers with it.
Do you mind if I have a look?
Oh, no, of course not. How are your ancient languages? He stands up.
I do have some Latin. I'm fairly well adept in it.
There's a little Latin there, but most of it is ancient Greek.
Well, I shall have a look at the Latin at least, and see what I can do. Greek. In Italy. Fascinating.
He nods. It is strange, but there are stranger stories, I'm certain. So, getting over the papers, Lady Elisabeth, you realize that the Latin that's here is fairly sparing, actually. It's not a ton of it. And the book that's here seems to be a diary of sorts. You can tell because there are dated entries.
Do I get a name or anything?
You don't, actually.
I don't suppose you happen to know ancient Greek.
Antonio shakes his head. Unfortunately not.
A pity. Not one of those things my father decided that I needed any instruction in. Oh well.
There are some papers there underneath there that might interest you, though. There are some notes, I believe, on excavations at Pompeii and some other sites. If you know any archaeologists, they might be able to prove useful if the ancient Greek could be translated.
Would you be so kind as to allow me to take these with me? I will return them to you, of course, before I depart. But as I don't have ancient Greek myself, I can hardly translate them here. As a fellow member of nobility, I'm sure we have a rapport.
I'm willing to trust you based on your family name, if that's what you're asking me to do. I do want to make sure that we get them back, of course. They are the last pieces of what the family has that has not been donated to the museum. If you could find a way to get them translated, of course, I would ask that you return a copy of the translation to the family so we could understand the story of Winkelmann better.
Of course. And there's an actual sort of genuine smile. My family, in particular, treasures its books. And there are things I would also like to have translated or opened to me, and I would be grateful for anyone who could. So in this case, I will do my best to have these secrets revealed for you.
Wonderful. Why don't you both make me hard psychology rolls?
Oh, God.
And, yep, go ahead.
My psychology is only 38. Nope. Not even close. 54.
Miss Bellinger?
That is also a fail for Miss Bellinger. That's a 77 for me. And I know my psychology is nowhere near that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, he helps you collect the papers and the little entries, the diary entries. And then as you, at your leisure, he will continue to entertain you with tea. Or if you are interested in continuing on your journey before it gets too terribly dark, then he would happily see you out.
Yes, I think once I have the books and things, I'm happy to leave. And also, I don't want Maggie embarrassing me any further. So as soon as I have the materials, I will happily depart.
Yes, I've probably blown it with this future suitor, haven't I?
Yeah, this is the second man who has some sort of prosthesis that you've probably blown it with, yes.
He's kind of got a thing for that now, I think.
It's possible.
She likes collecting body parts. She's interested in other people with fake body parts.
You're kind of wondering, like, maybe I could get a hold of his body part and create a wooden collection.
My God, yes. Yes.
So, Mr. Fraser, you departed the rest of the group to investigate, or at least take in, a very special church, yes?
I did, yes. And on the way, I thought I might take a stroll through the gardens and have a look at this cenotaph, which the others were talking about. They visited the previous morning.
Certainly. Yeah. So this terraced garden is fairly charming. It would be even more charming if it wasn't for the damned Bora wind.
Yeah, wrapped myself up well against that. Learned my lesson.
Yes, probably an excellent idea. The cenotaph is fairly spectacular as far as its size and purpose. It's on display for all to see. It talks about him at great length. It seems to be something of a point of pride for the people here.
Yeah, I think I'll just have a look at all the various different points of interest within the gardens.
Mm-hmm.
Being a keen gardener myself, I'd be quite interested to see the planting here.
Why don't you give me a spot hidden roll, specifically if you're going to be looking at the gardens?
I will do. And that is a 39, which is just under half, so that's a hard success for me.
Very good. So you notice just down the slope here, something you hadn't noticed before, and something they may have pointed out to you. You notice that the gardens here butt up against at least a replica of what looks like a Roman temple. It's sheltered by these plane trees, which bow a bit with the Bora wind. There's maybe some movement there. It's dark. It's not well lit, but it would afford you cover.
Well, if there's a point of interest here that will allow me to momentarily take respite from this rather chilly breeze, then yeah, I think I'll make my way over to that. It's a shame that I broke the glass on my torch the previous evening, but I'll have replenished my box of matches, certainly.
Undoubtedly, you would not go out and about without a full book of matches, or box of matches for that matter. So just getting inside here, there is still some light for your eyes to draw on. You do see that there's a mounted high here, a phrase in high relief here. Well executed, but the proportions, or something with the proportions, are a little wrong. And so you get this sort of uneasy feeling right at the top of your stomach when you view it. It depicts a group of humans making offerings to a group of animal spirits. The animals appear to be reptilian in nature, strangely like oriental dragons, but stockier.
Most peculiar. Let's have a little look at this here now, or maybe strike a match to be able to see this a little bit more detailed.
When you strike the match, you see that these sort of squat reptiles have unusually proportioned heads. The human figures appear fairly worn, some of them missing limbs or with limbs eroded to weird shapes, possibly from the passage of time, the wind, etc. Right? Some of this stuff has sort of died off. And although the reptilian figures are well preserved, it strikes you odd because it looks like they could have been carved yesterday.
This is very strange. I'll take a look at, he has no knowledge of architecture and the like, so he's kind of just basing it all off common sense. Sort of take a look around the rest of the building. Does it all appear to be fairly recent work?
No. The only thing that appears recent are these reptilian figures. Everything else here on this display, and also too, the building itself around you definitely shows signs of age.
Oh, I wonder why they've put something so recently carved onto this. I'll maybe pop into the museum and ask them about it. I'll maybe kind of trace it with my finger a little bit, just out of curiosity.
You trace it with your finger. The edges on these dragons certainly feel like they're fairly recent. You can even feel the difference, the smoothness of these humans that are making the sacrifices here. Just getting your fingertips on it it's pretty high, but you're a fairly tall individual, so it's not impossible for you to make the tactile connection.
So is this just a kind of relief, pretty much the same along the side of this? What is this exactly? Is it just a little platform with some pillars on it or something, or is there like an actual a doorway, an interior, or anything like that?
There is. So behind you, just turning around to get a better look at what's around you, you see that this is sort of an alcove that leads to an inner portion of this space, and that there's more to see within the space here.
Oh, I think I'll have a little bit of an investigation then. This does seem...
Certainly.
It's certainly piqued my curiosity.
So, walking inside, you begin to hear sort of Lady Elisabeth's voice in your head. And you remember her explaining some place where there was a sarcophagus, and where there was something that maybe they thought Winkleman had been buried in.
Yes, well, I know from our research that there is a cenotaph to Winkleman in these gardens. I already know that.
Yep.
Because that was some information that we found out at the library. And we had previously discussion earlier that day about Winkleman's sarcophagus, Winkleman, and I was getting rather irate at the thought because they were talking about breaking into the sarcophagus. But since discovering that this is actually a cenotaph, not a grave, not a mausoleum, then obviously the body's not here because that's it's merely a kind of a sort of a tribute to him more than anything else, a carved tribute to him.
And that tribute is not but 15 meters across the way there. You see the sarcophagus and the cenotaph.
So this whole building is the cenotaph. Mr. Winkleman. Goodness me, this is quite grand, isn't it? I'll have a good look around, I think.
Yeah. So the temple itself is windowless, so it takes your eyes a little time to adjust, even with the matches.
Yeah, so still a bit of light. There'll be a bit of light coming through the door from outside, though, because we're kind of middle of the afternoon now, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the sarcophagus rests on a marble base.
Mm-hmm.
On top of it, there's a reclining figure, winged and holding a medallion with a man's head in profile.
Oh, a medallion, eh? That seems to be the theme. Let's have a look at you then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give this a thorough inspection. Not just the sarcophagus, but probably the whole of the interior as much as I can.
Okay. Yeah, you take your time. There's no one else here, so you're not bothered by anything other than if you're bothered by a collection of cats who seem to have made their home near the sarcophagus.
There's a thought running through my head at the moment that we know there is a medallion missing from the collection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm assuming, I can't remember for sure, but I'm assuming that Richard passed on that he had seen when he used his device here. He'd seen an argument about a medallion and Winkleman refusing to give up a medallion. So he's kind of putting 2 and 2 together and making 5 that maybe Winkleman hid the medallion somewhere. Maybe, could it be here? I mean, this is not something that was built by him, but it's worth having a little look about. Is the sort of thought going through his head. It might come to nothing, but it's worth just checking out, just to cross it off the list, if nothing else.
All right then,
because you can't help but feel that this medallion must be in some way important. Not quite sure how it fits into the grand scheme of things, but there must be some sort of relevance to it.
So a thorough search.
I think so.
That'll probably take the better part of maybe 30 minutes. And I won't necessarily make you roll anything because you're essentially you're taking your time. There's no immediate decisions being made. So a couple of things come out. This sarcophagus, there is no way to open it. It has no hinges. It was made as a complete
stone carving, basically, isn't it?
Yes. And so there's likely nothing in it because nothing was ever in it in the first place. There is a plaque to him where they commemorate his death. But other than that, the temple itself, this sort of lasting legacy to Winkleman, that's about all there is.
But there's nothing inside here that it seems to relate to these strange carvings outside of these kind of reptilian. Are they kind of humanoid reptilian creatures? Is that?
No, they're reptiles. They're definitely dragon-like. They're not human at all.
Do they look in any way familiar to me, bearing in mind what happened to us in La Scala?
No.
Or am I barking up the wrong tree with that?
I think you're barking up the wrong tree there. And I would just say that because these seem to be walking on all fours.
Oh, right. Okay.
They remind you more of a crocodile than they would anything else.
All right. So it's kind of humans putting out offerings towards crocodiles.
Yes. Reptilians. Right. They're not walking on 2 legs by any means.
Yeah. Do they appear to be kind of like huge reptiles, like dinosaurs, possibly?
Maybe. They're a bit larger than the humans themselves.
Right. Okay. How are the humans dressed?
They're not. They're nude.
All right. Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. Well, I think once he spent a bit of time before it gets dark, and if it kind of seems like he's coming up empty-handed in this place, I think he would just sort of take one last look at this relief outside, and then continue his journey towards the cathedral.
Okay. Yeah, you continue on towards the cathedral. It's not terribly far from your current position. You do have to use the handholds to sort of get around the city because the wind has picked up. You're getting the feeling that it does that in the late afternoon here.
On my journey, do I appear to be passing by any shops or nearby to any shops? Because I'm aware that it's starting to get on in the afternoon. Shops are probably going to be closed, and I did promise Simon that I'd buy him a walking stick.
Yeah, we'll say that you have it's reasonable enough for you to have passed by a general store, which might have a cane or a stick that would be fashioned for such.
Well, I shall muddle through in very, very rudimentary Italian just by pointing and waving money at the shopkeeper.
Yes, I can imagine that. Yeah, the shopkeeper is happy to help, especially when you start waving money. And you get a fairly sturdy walking stick. Not truly a cane, but it seems that they're in high demand here, what with the wind.
Okay, I will thank him for that. And I think I'll make use of the cane just to test it out, of course. Make sure it's of sufficient quality for Mr. Griffith. and continue towards the cathedral.
The cathedral is a beautiful, if a bit hybrid of a cathedral here. So your study of the Traveler's Guide plus your keen eye would detect that this is not an original Catholic church. It's a church that's sort of been smushed together with a Byzantine church from the past. And there's also a tower on the front of this thing. And the tower is only 3 or 4 stories high, but it is something that you notice on the way in.
Towers. I'd be happy if I never see another tower as long as I live.
That's the front of it. You get this beautiful stained glass piece here in the front, and then all of the stonework. And you can tell the different dating of the stones to your left come before that.
Yeah, I think I'll spend a little bit of time, have a walk round, just kind of inspect the exterior of the building, see if anything catches my eye. And then if there's a way in that I'm allowed to use, I'll go inside.
Absolutely. You head inside. It feels nice to get the cold wind off your back, and you can sort of feel your skin shudder underneath the labor of it. Stepping inside the cathedral itself, you get a beautiful view of the space they're in. And you can tell why that stained glass window makes such a huge impression on the location. There's a faint bit of light left, but there are candles aplenty inside here. And you get a real heartwarming feeling from it at first. It feels like the space is cared for.
Well, it's very nice indeed. Yeah. Yes, of course, this is not Mr. Fraser's particular denomination, the Roman Catholic faith, in being Church of Scotland. There's quite a fair divergence of styles of worship, but nonetheless, he appreciates the time and effort and skill that's gone into construction of the building.
Well, and there's something probably that he can also agree with, and that is the testament of faith and the time spent, the investment that's been done here. This is not the richest of church as far as the fineries which are about, but obviously someone cares and loves for the pews and all of the stone. Things are cared for.
So I think he'll walk up the aisle. Is there a priest about?
There is. He seems to be near the front of the church. He seems to be looking over something just to the right side of the main altar space here.
I will go up and bid the priest a good afternoon.
He turns around.
Buongiorno, padre.
Oh, buongiorno. He steps forward. A man probably in his mid-50s, dark black hair, olive tint to his skin. He's wearing what looked like... he's probably wearing a dark suit with his vestments over it. Not his finest Sunday clothes, obviously, but the more working clothes that the clergy might...
Just a simple cassock or something like that. So, do you speak English?
I do. Do you come from England, my son?
Scotland via England, yes. Indeed. This is a very, very fine cathedral you have here.
We are very proud of it.
Indeed, it certainly shows. One can tell the care taken on the building, and well, it's very well looked after. Very well looked after indeed.
How can I help you today?
Well, I'm purely sightseeing, really, I suppose, for want of a better word. I'd heard about the cathedral and its beauty and the artwork within, and I thought I would come and have a wee look if I'm not imposing at all.
Oh, not at all. This church is for all of God's children. He sort of extends an arm to the right and says there are many fine artworks here that have been put on display for the beautification of the city. We would be happy if you took a look. And
to the glory of God, of course.
Certainly. Certainly, he comes first.
Absolutely. Tell me a little about it.
God or the church?
The church. For instance, this particular depiction here on the ceiling. What does that represent?
He extends his hand upward and says, "The Dome of Santa Maria Assunta is beautiful, is she not?"
Very beautiful. Beautiful indeed.
You see a very, very well done engraving here at the top. All of the little depictions of people of faith, and then obviously the disciples below.
Must have taken many years to paint that on. Yes, and a great deal of skill and craftsmanship.
Indeed, we're having the bells serviced as well.
I see.
On the tower being done.
Just a matter of regular cleaning and polishing and the like?
No, more than polishing the bells for certain. What we're going to be doing is adding to them to make sure that all of God's children can hear when it's time to come to church.
Oh, really? Is this just to increase the volume so that it carries further over the city?
Over the wind. The wind has drowned out the bells for several years. In fact, he sort of walks you towards another portion of the church. If you'll see here, this organ was recently finished a few years ago. And you see a beautiful new church pipe organ that's been put in.
Splendid. Your organist must be thrilled to have such a beautiful instrument to play.
Yes, she's quite pleased to play it every Sunday and every other day that the church allows her to.
Of course. But tell me, there's a gentleman who I believe was of some significance to the city, Winkelmann, Johann Winkelmann. Does that name mean anything to you?
Certainly. The father of modern architecture, after Jesus and God, of course.
I saw his cenotaph in the gardens there, just by the museum. A very fine piece of work. Is he actually buried here in the graveyard at the church, or does his body lie elsewhere?
He steps a little closer. We keep Winkelmann. He rests here beneath the church.
Oh, I see. You have a crypt.
It's not really for public viewing, of course, but there are certain weeks of the year where we celebrate all of the important people the city has dealt with, and some of them are buried here.
Oh, well, I would imagine he is kept in a degree of reverence and respect.
He has done very much. He was very much the city's benefactor during a very difficult time.
You seem to know a great deal about him. Is that common amongst the citizens here? That
we learn about his life from a very early age.
I see. A very, very important figure to you. I couldn't help but notice on the cenotaph they had a rather unusual engraving on the front. Some sort of I don't know, prehistoric depiction of some kind, as far as I could tell. I couldn't quite follow it.
You can read his body language pretty quickly at the mention of that imagery. A pagan decoration that does not need to be displayed any longer, if you don't mind me saying so. It's unfortunate that such a beautiful tribute to an important person would have depictions of devil worshipry on it.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more, sir. I couldn't agree with you more. It did strike me as somewhat out of place on the building. And I couldn't help noticing as well, it seems to be, I don't know if it's been touched up recently or it's been cleaned or something. It looked not only inappropriate, if I might use the term, but also it looked as though it had been recently adjusted, amended. I don't know.
I don't know. I do know that someone of his, someone we hold in the city in such reverence does not deserve such a thing. He sort of stops for a moment. If you see where he is buried, you would understand why a man of God like that would want nothing to do with pagan architecture.
Oh, really? You don't say. I mean, is this a recent thing? Because it did look. Is someone responsible for recently deciding that this should be put upon the tribute to the man, to the cenotaph?
I blame local children.
How so?
Well, this wouldn't be the first type of graffiti that the city has seen.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it looked rather more than graffiti to me. It looked like a considerable amount of time and care was taken over it. Has it been there for a long? Has it always been there on the cenotaph?
There has been some depiction. As a man of God, I do not look on it. I have not been by this terrace in some time.
I see. I won't press the matter. I can see it's obviously a painful subject to you, and I can quite understand why. You were saying that the place where the Professor Winkleman, was it? I think it was a professor, was he not? Where he is actually laid to rest is of a very different nature. Well,
if you have a moment, I can show it to you.
Well, I really wouldn't like to impose, but if you are free, I would be fascinated to see it. Yes, I would. Yes, it would be wonderful. Thank you. Well, that's uncommonly kind of you, sir.
He reaches into his onto his belt, and you see him fish a small set of keys out. It's downstairs. It's not far. He walks to sort of a side passageway that leads to a door, and he unlocks a door and then turns a heavy handle and opens the door. You see down this stairway, there are a set number of candles. Not all of them are burning. Just a couple. The father there begins lighting a few of them as you go down. And he explains as you're stepping down these marble stairs that the crypt was originally built for the Byzantines that were here. And so that there are many Roman soldiers that were once buried down here. But some of them, because of the way the land turned and changed over time, they had to be moved out, and then they made space and eventually reutilized one of the crypts for Winkleman's body. And he takes you into the stairs down are no more than maybe 20 or 25 stairs. It's a total of maybe a story or so.
Because he goes down and make a little mental note, must buy some candles.
You get to a room that's about 10 by 20, and there are 5 total crypt doors. There are 2 on your right, 2 on your left, and then 1 at the far end. And he walks across the hall, again, just lighting a few candles to give some reasonable light to the area. And he gets to this door. The door has Winkleman's name on it in Italian, Winklemano, and there are beautiful crosses all along the outside of the door in a sort of a checkerboard pattern that moves back and forth. It's quite lovely. The door itself is actually inlaid with copper and other fineries as well. There are some stonework that's been put into it. It probably took them several years to actually finish his crypt, just from the outside. You can tell the reverence that they put on his name based on this crypt. It's the nicest one that's down here.
I think I'll take a quick look at the other doors or whatever there is on the way to Winkleman's, just to see whose they are, or just out of curiosity more than anything else.
How's your Italian?
My Italian is non-existent.
Very good.
But I can make out what might be a name and a date and that kind of thing.
So I'll give you this. There are most of the other crypts in here are likely between 500 to 700 years old.
Okay.
Overall, and all the people buried down here are men.
Is there any commonality of name? Is it like, or is it just lots of different people from the looks of it? It's not like not like families or anything like that.
It's not a family. No, it looks like it's all different sorts of people.
I think I'll just sort of mention it as we go along. And these other crypts, are they important figures in the city's history, benefactors to the church and so forth?
Benefactors of the church. Some of them are, historical figures, people that served during wartime.
I see. Well, this is most impressive. I see what you mean about the difference in theme and tone of his actual burial chamber.
He opens the door to the crypt, and you hear the door swing very heavy on its hinges. It does not sound as if it's been opened in some time.
Are you sure that you have no objection to me viewing this? I really wouldn't want to impose.
Of course not. I want you to see what he meant to us. It's really only viewable from inside.
Oh, thank you. Very, very grateful indeed.
You feel a deep sense of respect inside the space. It's dark before he lights a few matches, but you feel a reverence here, James. There's something to this space. There's a stone casket in here. It's obviously covered, and there is some of the finest stonework you have seen. Most of the walls here are white alabaster mosaic that have tiny red touches along them to give a stylized Roman border feature at the tops and bottoms. It's like something you would expect to see in Rome, except that it's here in northern Italy. It's the tiniest place, but there's deep meaning here.
I think we'll stand for a few moments, just quietly out of respect. I'm tempted to make a psychology roll that this priest doesn't have ulterior motives, but I'm not going to, because it seems to me that he has shown me a great courtesy, taking me to see this place.
Why don't you make me a hard listen roll?
Oh, of course. Well, that is an 11. Let me just double check that I'm reading this right. Yes, that is an 11, which is a hard lesson roll.
You hear something on the stone outside in the crypt area. Someone moves. Something moved out there.
I'll turn to the priest. Did you hear something? Is there someone out there?
He looks at you and blows the match out that he's holding. I didn't hear anything. There are a couple of candles now in the crypt that are available for light.
I think I heard somebody on the steps outside, Father. I'm sorry, Father
Risi.
Father Risi. You didn't hear them. I'm sure I heard movement.
Are you all right?
There is nobody here in the church with you.
No.
So I think with his hand in his pocket where he keeps his revolver, because he never goes out without his revolver these days, Mr. Fraser will take a few steps over towards the doorway and say, "Is there somebody out there?"
You hear your voice echo off the stones.
"Hello? Speak up if you're there."
You hear Father Risi walk up behind you and then to the side of you. "Hello?"
Kind of look at him.
You don't hear anyone. It's probably a cat.
Possibly, yes. Yes. Wait there if you would. A moment, Father. I'll go and take a wee look.
All right.
And I will walk slowly and quietly up the stairs, keeping my ears and eyes peeled.
You begin walking slowly up the stairs. There's really a half flight and then 2 full flights of stairs. So you walk up a little and then turn, and you can still see the Father there. He's come out into sort of the central crypt area, but he's still quizzically looking at you. And then you continue to go up, your eyes and ears sharp, ready and waiting. How far are you going up?
I'm going to go as far as I need to go until I satisfy myself that there's nobody there, or I encounter whoever is there.
Fair enough. You continue going up. Eventually you see the yawning open door that leads to the main floor.
I think when I'm a little bit ahead of the Father, and when I can do so without him observing exactly what I'm doing, I'm going to take my pistol out.
Okay.
And just have it ready.
Yeah, he trails off in your perception a little bit. He doesn't follow you fully out. He's more curious than anything.
Yeah, I want to make sure that he is definitely safe behind me. You know, that I've not passed by whoever's, assuming that there is somebody there and they've made the noise, that I've not passed them by, and that he's in any danger from them. Because the paranoia is high in James Fraser's head. You know, he knows that that there's been this incident at the grotto. He knows there's been an incident at the gardens as well earlier in the day. He's. If it sounds like this, do not bode well as far as he's concerned.
Give me a listen roll.
That is not a success. What's my listen? But I'm willing to push the roll if there's a way that I can do that.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm not going to. That was like 30 points over my listen score, so I'm not going to be spending that luck. But
wonderful. All right.
So I'll if I think I've maybe possibly heard something and I'm not quite sure if I've heard it, I'll stand very, very still, hold my breath, and just focus. Or maybe poke my head around a corner while I do that.
Poke your head around a corner. Go ahead and give me a roll.
Yeah. Just want to give myself a bit of jeopardy here. Close my eyes so I can listen better. That's what I'll do. Close my eyes. That is just a success. 52 under 56.
Very good. You hear the wood creak, and it sounds like someone's sitting down in a pew. There's definitely a creak of wood, and it definitely comes from up there in the church proper.
All right. Oh, well, maybe it's just someone coming for a quick pray of an afternoon. I'll turn back down to the Father. Father, do you have people come in from time to time to sit and pray?
So the Father is down a couple of flights.
Oh, see, too far away behind me. Yeah,
you could call to him if you wanted to.
Yeah. No, I don't really want to do that.
Okay.
I think I'll just come out quietly, sticking to the shadows. If you want me to make a stealth roll, I'm happy to do that.
No, you shouldn't have to. You stick to the shadows. There are some shadows and columns which you can get in and around and scope to get a better look at what's going on in the chapel proper.
Yeah, and I'm also keeping my eyes peeled around just in case there's more than one person here. And I don't want my attention to be entirely focused on one person while somebody else creeps up from behind and hits me over the head with something heavy.
You hear another creak from inside the chapel.
From somewhere else?
No, it's basically you turn from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Because it draws your attention.
So not from the pews where I heard the first noise, then from a different place. Okay.
And now the blood is beginning to hammer inside your veins, and you can feel the pressure inside your body, thinking and You're trying to stop your brain from imagining someone where there isn't someone. It's all stuff you've been through before. And what cuts through your mental sort of framework is the deep and monstrous scream that comes from the crypt. And that is where I'll call this episode to a close. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Horror on the Orient Express. There is more horror to follow next week. We truly appreciate your listening ears. Thank you and good night.